Hi, I was bored the other night. I'd read all my books, seen all my films and read the entire internet, and I thought, what can I do for entertainment? So I checked out Nathan Oakley's channel. We all know that Nathan can't understand anything. He has no concept of scale. He can't convert meters into kilometres. Well, I found that there's something else he doesn't understand.
Roll VT.
So we have the class of Dunning-Kruger 2022. Neil Constantina doesn't actually take part. I think he's off sick. 10th man can't work out how to unmute himself. And Brian's logic, I think, might have a note from his mum. So that leaves us with these luminaries of modern flat earth science. We've got Arwin, refracted curvature, the one and only the Adam Meakin, Elijah Freeman, I think it is, and, of course, Mr. Nathan Oakley. So let's see what they're going to tell us about today.
It was just something I caught over the weekend while you were talking about this. And
what was that? The dose of the clap? Was it a certain virulent disease of which you don't believe? Not sure. Carry on.
Models and stuff. It's just a little contradiction. I don't get it. Is my point. So
well, no surprise there. I'm sure you don't get it, and I'm sure the others in this collection of very clever people who happen to be flat earthers, I'm sure they also don't get it.
Some like telescope dude.
Oh, for crying out loud! Some telescope dude. The word is astronomer. If you're talking about a telescope dude.
Knox Boy 24. He's taking these images which are always the same of Orion, and he's put them into 3D, which is a weird thing to do, and then demonstrate parallax, which I found very weird from a baller's perspective.
Look, the stars, space, is a three-dimensional environment. The stars aren't little lights stuck on the inside of a glass sphere or dome that are all the same distance from you. They're all varying distances.
Because it's one of the contradictions of their model. So to then bother to do it and show how Orion would look different from different angles.
Hold on. Let me get you straight. He's modelled it, but in his model he's showing that based on the varying differences you would have parallax, and he's showing... So we can take this and show how the globe model parallax would be like this, but it isn't.
But it isn't. Nathan, I think you've totally failed to understand what this little video clip that they're showing is actually showing. The stars are at different distances. If you view the pattern of stars in Orion from different locations, that constellation would appear different. Is this really so hard to understand? Yeah, probably.
This is very useful. Thank you for debunking your claims of distant stars at varying distances causing parallax we don't see. What a clown.
Nathan, every time you open your mouth, you show what a clown you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The stars shouldn't always be the same.
Well, value Legolas, the stars aren't always the same. The patterns in the constellations are changing, but very slowly, because the stars happen to be quite a long way away.
Yeah, we should have parallax.
Well, they're not.
Well, the pattern that we see is always the same, right? Except for the angle within that apparent sphere of the stars.
Look, the pattern is changing, but the pattern of a constellation will change over tens of thousands of years, depending on the distances of the stars. They're not going to change over a few hours. And the fact that a constellation such as Orion moves across the sky during a night is nothing to do with parallax. That is just due to the Earth rotating, so it appears in a different part of the sky. Boy, you guys really do struggle, don't you?
Throughout the
But
night.
the way that the stars are divided among one another is always the same, so no parallax.
Only there is parallax. Let me show you. On the 22nd of April 2020, NASA's New Horizons probe pointed its camera at Proxima Centauri. Proxima Centauri is approximately 4.25 light years away. At the same time, a telescope on Earth also imaged the same star. These alternating images show the differing views because of our differing positions looking at that star, demonstrating the parallax. New Horizons was approximately 4 billion miles away from Earth at the time. That is all the parallax you can see, with a baseline of 4 billion miles. And yet you think with the Earth turning at a few thousand miles over a few hours, you're going to visually see parallax. What do you think about Oakley's claim that we should be able to see parallax in the stars throughout the night?
Well, I don't know anything about that, but I do know that I like fluffy little kittens.
And I'm not going to have apparent parallax either, i.e. the following day they've moved in their position, therefore parallax. No. Parallax, right? If you're on a train, the very fact that you're moving along at varying distances to the scenery means that they move relative to your position, or appear to move relative to your position at different rates. That's parallax.
Okay, Nathan. Yes, you're travelling along. It could be travelling at any speed. You're walking along. As you pass a tree, it appears to move against the background of hills in the distance. That's parallax, yes. What's your problem?
Well, what have we got in terms of the heliocentric description of the stars? Well, they're all at varying distances as we turn beneath them. So there should be parallax throughout the night.
What? Just what? You simply have zero, and I really do mean zero, concept of the scale of the universe. Zero concept of the scale of the distances to stars. Zero concept of the scale of our solar system. And zero concept of the scale of this planet Earth. You're a chuffing idiot. That shut you up.
There isn't, by the way.
I don't know about throughout the night. But
Why not?
Well, it sounds like the Adam Meakin actually does understand a little. Of course you don't, which is why you're challenging him straight away. Why not?
Why not? In a heliocentric model, you would absolutely have parallax throughout the night.
That is a claim, Nathan. A claim that I defy you to evidence. If you take the heliocentric model, demonstrate to us with some diagrams or something how you should see parallax among the stars throughout the period of one night. You can't, because we don't expect it. You're a fool.
how much angular change would be expected?
Good point. How much angular change do you expect, Nathan? Because you have no concept of the scale, you have no concept of the amount of angular change there would be during the course of one night.
Be seen throughout the night.
Well, as you're travelling at a given speed, moving your position with the relative world that is the stars in a heliocentric model wrapped around you, you're moving with relation to all of it at different rates because they're at different distances, ergo you should have parallax. You don't.
No, Nathan, you're not going to see parallax. There will be parallax, but it will be so tiny that during the course of a night you couldn't possibly measure that movement of any given star against the background. We're talking about stars that are varying from a few light years to hundreds and even thousands of light years that you can see with the naked eye, and you think that you're going to be able to visually see parallax due to the different angle that you're looking at those stars as against the background during the course of a few hours.
Oh.
Yeah, but what distances would they be considered? Like, how much parallax should you see in a night?
Good question, and one that has been much on my mind during the past 3.5 minutes or whatever it is.
A lot.
A lot. Based on what, Nathan? You have pulled a lot from your little hairy butthole, haven't you? the parallax depends on the angle. The angle is going to depend on the distance to the star. You just said a lot. Is that the level of flat Earth science these days? Yeah, probably.
They're at varying distances, therefore there should be varying rates of parallax all over the place.
Well, like if you're in a mountain range and you look out and there's distant mountains, not all those distant mountains are at the same distance, but they all seem to move together as you move.
Good point, refracted curvature. Yes, that tree that I'm walking past is very close. The hills in the background, we see several hills, are at quite a distance. So as I move along a few feet, the angular change of the position of those mountains against whatever background there is going to be all but zero. There will be a difference, but I'm not going to see it. Scale, distance. You just don't get it, do you, Nathan? But there's no surprise there.
Does that mean that they're all should move at different rates depending on how far you move?
Well, hi guys.
If the
Can we
mountains
use,
were also...
I was going to answer him.
Oh yeah, let Elijah answer. See if he can help you understand.
Hold on, go ahead, Eli. Just one sec, Adam. I heard Eli first. Go ahead.
Can't we use, say, instead of 2 stars, the moon?
The moon is, what, 250,000 miles away, roughly. You're talking, or trying to compare that with stars that are many, many light years away. Again, scale matters. Yes, the moon, depending on your position looking at it, you would be able to measure a parallax. If you had 2 people at different points across the world, both looking at the moon, there would be some parallax against the background stars, although I suspect you would actually need some equipment to measure it. You're not going to be able to identify it by eye. But that is a vast difference when comparing it to the parallax amongst stars.
The stars?
He's saying there should be parallax with respect to the moon and stars because the moon's at a much closer distance. Well, yes, also, but go ahead, Adam.
But the moon does demonstrate that, doesn't it? Its relative position changes throughout the night.
It seems that some of the people amongst your panel at least have an inkling of things, Nathan. An inkling is something that you do not have. Although, Adam, the moon is actually moving across the background of stars comparatively quickly. I always remember when I was about 10 years old, 11 years old, the first time I had a little telescope and I pointed it at the moon. It was set up on a tripod. I thought, this is brilliant. I left the room to get my mum. Went back again, looked through the telescope. It wasn't pointed to the moon. I thought this was most peculiar. I thought someone had knocked the telescope. No, it was just the moon had travelled out of the field of view. So it is a comparatively very fast-moving object because it's so close. So the change against the background of stars will be so much greater.
Don't forget to like this video, and if you haven't, hit subscribe. Oh, and sharing it with your friends would be a good idea. If you don't, I shall smite you down for your naughtiness.
Because it is tracking differently. The point with regard to the mountains is if the mountains were also moving, the only way that you would prevent that would be if the mountains were moving to keep the same level of perspective just for you as the observer, wouldn't it?
Well, you've just dropped in my estimation, Adam, because that was some fine word salad.
But if they were also moving along their own independent path, then you would definitely see it. The reason you see, and it supports premise, doesn't it? The reason the mountains aren't demonstrating it directly when they're so far away is because they're static, and static in relation to each other.
It doesn't depend on the objects being static. If you were looking across a mountain range, travelling, let's say, in a fairly low-flying aircraft, the nearest mountains as you travel along would appear to move against the background of the further mountains, but you have to travel a fair distance before it's something you can visually see. As I said, if you're just walking along, it's going to take a long time for you to notice the movement of a nearer mountain as against the background of the further mountain or mountains. And when you're talking stars with the distances of multi-light years, you're talking about having to travel for tens of thousands of years before you could visually see a difference. However, some stars do show a lot more parallax. This stacked image, taken over 5 years, shows the movement of a single star against the background of stars. This shows that stars do move. It shows that over time constellations will change, and it shows how little actual movement is apparent, as that took 5 years to visually move that far. And that star is moving at the speed of about 68 miles per second. Again, you think you should see things change over a night. You're quite literally dumb. And that's Barnard's star, the star with the greatest proper motion against the sky.
This is all in respect to the housekeeping question. It's just you that's brought this up in regard to this video, Adam. So did you want to round anything out in this regard?
So you're quickly changing the subject, Nathan, when he makes a point that you realise, hold on, you look like an idiot. Yeah, quickly, change the subject.
No, it was just what the guys were talking about, what the skies and stars can prove in the pre-show, what I just caught, and it just jogged my memory. It just, in my timeline, it was this, and I thought, that's just an odd thing, certainly for a heliocentrist to go and do, because it just puts all sorts of questions in your mind.
Yeah, questions. That's always a problem with you guys, because as soon as there's a question, you don't understand it, let alone being able to answer it. This whole video is showing the stars in Orion from different views. I'm not sure of the average distance of the stars in Orion. Let's say they're 500 light years away, roughly. So if we're looking at one of these patterns, it could be looking from the side view to that group of stars. Well, actually, they're not even a group, they're just a line of sight. So that view in this 3D model is travelling hundreds of thousands of light years around the stars in Orion in a great big circle. It's not travelling along in a straight line a few miles over a few hours. As I said, you have literally no understanding of what's being shown and no understanding of scale whatsoever.
And especially the way you see you contorts it, the extremities that this thing will go to. So,
yeah,
absolutely. Just an odd one.
So, another interesting thing is we discovered who the originator of the sextant.
Who the originator of the sextant was? Oh, shut up. So here's Parallax 101 for you, Nathan. Here you are driving along in your little pink Mazda MX-5. And as you're driving along, you look at a tree. You take an observation and see a tree against the background of a mountain. The mountain is in the direction of the light blue arrow. You travel along for half a mile and take another observation, again looking at that tree, and it appears to have moved against the background of that mountain. Half that distance travelled is your parallax angle. It makes a triangle between the two observation points and the tree. The baseline is the distance you have travelled. The longer that baseline, the larger the parallax angle, and the more the tree will appear to have moved against the background. If you only travel a really short distance between observation A and observation B, so that your baseline is really short, that makes your parallax angle very acute. Technically speaking, it makes a really, really pointy triangle. Now, stars are a very long way away, so if you take two observations of the same star from different points on the Earth, or perhaps from the same place just several hours apart, that triangle, that baseline, is going to be tiny compared to the distance of the star. So your triangle to that star is going to result in an extremely acute parallax angle, so much so you won't be able to measure it. So one option was to do as we did with the New Horizons probe and take two measurements, two readings from 4 billion miles apart. The other way, which is often used, is to take observations of the same star 6 months apart, giving you a baseline of the diameter of Earth's orbit. Even so, the parallax angle is tiny. once again, Nathan, you are not going to see parallax amongst the stars a few hours apart by the naked eye. So once again, Nathan, you demonstrate your complete lack of understanding of, well, anything really. We've had the Black Swan, the year of the Black Swan. Last year apparently was the year of the sextant. Will this year be the year of parallax? I mean, Nathan, what is your problem?
The problem we have is we're just scum. We're the dregs of society. We're flat earthers.
Well, who am I to argue with such wise words? Until next time, stay sensible.
Shut up and sit down.